This episode of the Humans of Agriculture podcast is part of our partnership with LivestockSA's AgRi-Silience program. Across the series, we wanted to bring a variety of people and stories together to improve strategic planning and long-term resilience for forward-looking South Australian livestock and broadacre enterprises. To find out more, the AgRi-Silience program is open for applications and you can apply by heading to www.livestocksa.org.au. Well, Chris, I guess, first and foremost, welcome to the Humans of Agriculture podcast. I'm excited to sit down with you today. It took a little bit of chasing on a few different social media platforms and phones, but we got here in Adelaide to sit down.
We're both busy people, Ollie.
I know, yeah. Maybe I was better to track you down and chase you. So, no, thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
Not a trouble.
Chris, I guess for people who aren't familiar, we're going to jump in and hear a little bit more about who you are and what you do. But in terms of your background, more than 25 years working in business advisory, especially in and around family business and farming and agriculture, you've worked across farming family businesses, family corporates and small, medium enterprises across South Australia and Victoria. And I think today what I'm really interested to talk to you about, because I think people will get a heck of a lot out of this, is about family boards and just different family business structures. But to start off with, Chris, I'd just love to know a little bit about your background and what you do day to day now.
Yep. Thanks, Ollie. Yep. 25 years is flattering me, so you might have to add another 10 years onto that. But
I have to update you by it.
Yeah, I suppose when I look back at my sort of career in advising, it's sort of 7 years in the public sector in the Department of Agriculture, and that was a really good grounding, really good platform to learn about farming systems and actually how to talk to farmers, how to communicate to farmers, and how to find out what their needs and interests really are. The next 7 years after that was with Resource Consulting Services, and I opened up Southeast South Australia and Western Victoria, so that was in the private world. So that gave me an insight into the private world. I feel that I made a real difference to more than 150, 200 farming families, and many of them I still work with today in teaching the Grazing for Profit course and RCS's Rural Profit System. That was some insightful work. And then after that, we had our own succession planning, and I joined with Andrew Beattie, my first business partner, so now in the business world, and then branched out with another couple of partners. So we did that for about 4 years, and then we acquired a professional services firm in Geelong, and as Pro Advice, we've been chugging along as professional service advisors in accounting and business advisory for about 16, 18 years. And then last year we merged our business with More in Victoria. So yeah, that's sort of a public to private to business to I was going to say the end point, but I can see the finishing line. But there's still plenty to do.
I'd love to know, just with the different steps and I guess the way your business and career has evolved, was it planned out? Like, did you always look at a 5-10 year plan, or did you have, I guess, a guide rope, but then within that you were open to being flexible and take up opportunities?
I was flexible to take up opportunities. I can remember at points in time after 7 years in the public sector, a researcher said to me, Dale Lewis, he said to me, he sat me down one day and he said, son, you've got to think about whether you're going to be doing this the next 25 years of your life. And as it turned out at the time, I was put into a job that was basically pushing paper and pencil. So that was a pretty easy decision to go into the commercial world. And then after 7 years in RCS, it was a question of, I was in my 30s in your wealth creation and your build up, and there was an opportunity to be an employer, to be in business, and really worked well with Andrew Beattie, and was privileged to work with him. And it was an easy question, an easy decision to go into business and then to grow the business from there. So I think opportunities presented itself, and circumstances at the time for me meant that I had to take those opportunities. And I think of Alice in Wonderland quote, and Alice in Wonderland, there's a quote there where the Cheshire Cat and Alice in Wonderland come to a fork in the road, and Alice says to the Cheshire Cat, well, which way should we go from here? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, any path will get you somewhere. So I had a bit more of a predetermined pathway, rather than just being at a fork in the road and just deciding to take the left or the right path.
So today in your day-to-day, what does it look like for you? What are you doing in any given week, and who are the types of people and businesses that you're coming across?
Yeah, so I guess to backtrack, in my first probably 14 years, 7 years in the Department of Agriculture, 7 years with RCS, I was really working at the gross margin end. And what I mean by that, it was production, improving farmers' production, getting them paid better if it was possible, keeping direct costs down and working at the gross margin level. And there, I guess I sort of realised I was making some difference, but there was a whole lot of world underneath the gross margin. There was machinery, tax, profitability, and most importantly, there was people. So what I've learned, I suppose, is that people make businesses, not the land, not the sheep, etc. But when there's opportunities and when there's problems, it's people. So very often when I'm called by clients as a prospective engagement, very often there's a dollar problem that I'm there to solve, but you scratch a bit further and there's people underneath there. So it's people that matter most, and it's people that I'm there to help with.
Can I ask on that? And I know we'll probably jump around a little bit, but on the topic of people, is there a learning or a lesson that you'd love to share at this stage in terms of what would help, I guess, a younger manager in any sort of business, get ahead and really get the right people on the bus?
Yep, there is. It's interesting. I'm doing a bit of research because I'm doing a bit of a lecture for the Adelaide Uni third year students, and I go back to the DISC model. So it's been quite instructional in my learning. So DISC, DISCH, stands for direct, influential, stabilisers and conscientious. So in a simple way, we all sort of fit in one of those boxes. And what I've learned is I'm a stabiliser, I'm a people person, I'm an accommodator, I'm a teddy bear. And what I've learned is that to communicate with the box that I have issues with is other direct people. But what I've learned is you've got to talk to them the way that they are. So you give them facts, you give them figures, you don't talk about. So I guess a simple way to answer your question is DISC has been a good model for me to learn about where people are and therefore how to communicate with them.
And is that something you've only just learnt through trial and error? And
no, we used to teach that in the RCS courses, but I've taken that for 20 odd years. Very simple for me to establish. Like I think, Ollie, you're a bit of a stabiliser.
Oh, do you?
I think you're I think you're a little bit of a people person.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit introverted, but here he is being extroverted on this podcast. So in that respect, Ollie and I think we could communicate quite easily and build a rapport pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm an I, actually. So, yeah, people person, but quite a high.
But if I had to speak to Donald Trump, it'd be facts and figures straight up. So I guess to very simply answer your question, DISC has helped me work out where people fit and how I need to communicate with them to actually connect with them.
And is it something that you think any business should do with anyone?
Absolutely. People matter most. Business is about people. Negotiation is about people. There's a lot of negotiation in business. There's a lot of negotiation within life. So get to know people and how to communicate with people.
I love that. Let's talk about family boards. So I'm interested. Can you just explain what is a family board and why would a business need one?
Yeah. I think families have meetings. My families have meetings around the table and they plan out the production and what to do for the day. I don't think we're talking about them. They're sort of more, they're formal meetings about what we're doing today and who's doing what. But I think the family meetings we're talking to are akin to like board meetings, like the board meetings that Telstra and BHP have. So why do we need to have them? Well, I think in agriculture, in my 34 odd years of experience, I think strategy is done really poorly by farmers and graziers. I think farmers and graziers do things right, but are they necessarily doing the right things right? And I think a family board is a communication tool to help get strategy right, governance, identify risk, set a budget. So many businesses I work with don't have budgets, or if they do have a budget, they have it for the bank and then it never gets used again. I think a family board's about succession, and I think we need to normalise succession planning, not take it as a special event that we all turn up to and hope that we're going to solve it at the end of the day. So I think families in business have meetings. but are they having meetings that involve strategy, governance, succession, risk, mentoring, and the key functions of a board?
So as you're talking, I probably just want to step back based off what, and I think we're probably going to get there anyway, but if we were to look at, say, a 12-month cycle of a business, are we able to look at maybe at a high level of what are those meetings? And so how would a family board help people, say, once every 12 months, every 6 months, quarter, monthly, weekly?
Well, if we started a production calendar, so a mixed farming business, February, a good time to have either an annual review, so recording what's happened for the production year and formalising it into actuals versus budget. I think at that time of year as well, an annual general meeting could be a good topic to forward plan. So there's your budget, there's your crop rotations. I think that annual general meeting is a good opportunity as well to be talking about succession, what could go wrong, risk, and what we will do about it if these risks occur. So I think as a minimum, and probably there's one more other meeting that a business should do, like a family board meeting at a minimum, so 2 for the year. So an annual general meeting tells us what happened and what we're likely to do in the future. And one other during the year just sees whether we're on track. For those businesses that might have financial crisis or people crisis or production crisis, the frequency of their board meetings should be and could be more often, and maybe at least quarterly. And I say quarterly because often the BAS gets done quarterly. So now we can do an actual budget after each quarter and know how our position is.
Yeah, gotcha. So you mentioned the family board. Who actually sits on this versus people like, I guess, working in a business every day versus someone like yourself? So I guess, yeah, what does a typical structure look like? Who's included and maybe who's not included on the family board?
It's a throwaway line, but the stakeholders of the business. So who's that? So the family needs to be at the family board meeting. I think as well, senior managers. So if you've got a farm manager, for example, I involve farm managers in board meetings. I split them into 2 components. So the morning part is with the farm manager, and we talk about the gross margin stuff, the risk, governance, etc. And then the afternoon, we talk about the succession planning, the bottom part of the budget, the overheads, the finance, the drawings, the capital, the profit, the tax. So I think that all the family can be involved, and I think you can actually involve other family members, particularly that are non-returning brother, like sons and daughters.
Okay.
I think that's really important. So it gives them involvement, and involvement leads to empowerment, and empowerment leads to information, and with information, there's not assumption. And I think in my succession planning work that I do, there's a lot of assumption because there's not a lot of communication. So I see it as really powerful to involve non-returning children or adult children into the family board meeting. It's only twice a year, maybe 4 times a year. And the other thing for them is they bring a great skill set. They've often got a uni degree on marketing, or they've got outside of agriculture exposure, so they bring a skill set that's not available on the family board. I think it's start and try to and run your family board. Pro advice and more Australia. We can't run our own board without an external chairperson because it's pretty hard to remove yourself from the actual running of the business and the involvement in the business. So try to do it to start with, but maybe it might need an outside person to assist.
And how do you go with, when it comes to stepping into these situations, removing emotion from the decision making for a family business?
Why do we have to remove emotion, Ollie?
How do you go about removing it? But also, let's start with why, and then also how do you do it?
Maybe we shouldn't.
Okay.
So clearly, dollars and cents and strategy talks about logic, that side of my brain. However, if we're talking about succession planning and even risk, then maybe emotion is involved.
Okay. Talk to me more about that.
Well, that succession planning involves people. People have emotions. The logic part about setting budgets and reporting to budgets and setting a strategy is logic stuff. So there's both sides of the brain that we should use and could use in our family board meetings.
So I wanna, like, I guess, continue on that. Like, so what role does the succession plan, which is obviously normally longer term, have in the annual business plan or 5-year business plan?
Yeah, I should delineate there. So succession planning, let's tease that apart. So succession planning to me is the succession of the business, as well as succession of the land. The other succession that we can also talk about is who succeeds on the board. So who might be the next chairperson, or who might be doing the minutes next? Often I rotate the chairperson, or if there is no chairperson, then I'll chair the board. So when I talk about succession planning as being one of the functions of a board, I think I'm talking about two things: the discussion about who's going to be running the board in future, but also who's going to be running the business in future. And I like to normalise both of those things in board meetings.
And so do you sometimes find that, like, where it's beneficial to have someone, like, so maybe that non-returning sibling or family member actually chairing those meetings? Or
Why not? If they've got the skill set, if it was a professional board and we're employing on the basis of who's the best person to do the job, and if they got the best skill set, then why not?
so I guess what I'm thinking of here is that, look, why don't, so I think what you're saying seems really quite logical. So why does this not happen in more family businesses that are farming?
Why does it? It's a really good question. There's probably not one clear answer. A couple of things I can think of is that we're all busy. We're all understaffed. There's 1,053 million things to do in a day. It's very easy to do the things that we like doing and need to be doing than the things we have to be doing. But in running a family board, we're talking about maybe 2 days a year. So 2 days a year to get the other 363 days doing the right things.
So what is your advice then to family businesses that are sitting, listening, going, they have that intent and that willingness to try something? What do you say to them?
Yeah, well, discuss the need. The need I see nowadays is businesses are professional. Family businesses are professional. 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 6 million turnover businesses on $20 to $100 million of assets. It's a professional business. So if where to start, well, have conversations around the kitchen table about the need for a family board. And if there's a need and desire to run a family board, then have a go yourself. My simple agenda for a family board is past, present and future. That's all the agenda is. The past is recording the actions from our last meeting, and that's about accountability and getting things done. The present is updating everyone about what's going on in terms of production systems and dollars and cents. And the future are the items that we need to discuss in the future. So if there's a need, if there's a desire and a want, if you want to be a professional business, if you want to be doing best practice, then have a conversation with the family about a family board and start.
And so if I was sitting there in the family business with that intent, and I think what I love and what I'm just thinking as you're saying that is that it really is keep it as simple as you can, because complication just makes things difficult.
Starting and doing something is better than doing nothing. And your first half a day board meeting might not be, there'll be heaps that you learn out of it. And I'd encourage people going on this journey at the end of their first board meeting just to do a what worked well and a what could be better, and then take that continuous improvement into their next meeting and continue to do what worked well and what could be better.
And so if I was returning, say, to the family business and I really want to implement this and I'm trying to get the family to the table and it feels like when we're sitting down, we're just going round and round and round in circles, what do I do? If I've been in that business and haven't really worked anywhere else, what's your advice there?
Well, there might be a sibling who's not in the family business that might have the skill set. I guess first and foremost, if there's the desire for the family to actually undertake it, but perhaps not the capability, then maybe a family member who's not involved in the family business might have that experience. Or maybe there's an outside person, an advisor, consultant, neighbour, colleague. I know many family boards that have neighbours and trusted colleagues as chair. So look to outside.
So it doesn't have to be difficult.
It doesn't have to be difficult. The difficult thing is actually getting started and doing something about it.
What I'd love to probably round out with here, Chris, is there a series of questions that, as you said, and I think as simple as past, present, future, but is there some other questions that people should be thinking of that they could bring into that discussion?
In the board, you mean?
Yeah, to come in.
Well, the strategy piece talks to me about what's our purpose. So why are we doing what we're doing? That's your mission. I guess in defining why you do what you do, it's Simon Sinek who said, people don't care what you do, they care why you do it. So in defining your mission or your purpose, you're defining the reason why you're doing it. That's an important question to work out. Then I guess another part of the strategy piece question is to work out what you're doing, how you're doing it. Roles and responsibilities are important. Who's going to be doing it? Ultimately so that the whole family's on the same journey, paddling the same canoe in the same direction.
Yeah. Have you got anything else in and around, I guess, business structures and especially within family businesses that you'd like to share or talk about?
One thing, so when I chair family boards, one thing that I've introduced to families is an all advisor, an annual general meeting, incorporating the family's advisors, so the accountant, the wealth advisor, and even the bank manager. And I chair a half-day board meeting for many of my clients involving their professional service providers. And the interesting observation is that the advisors say to me, it's the first time they've actually heard the other person's opinion. So the accountant's listening to the wealth advisor. So each knows what part they're playing and how they work in it. So the wealth advisor knows what the tax strategy is and where money's flowing into superannuation. The bank know the tax position, and the bank knows what's happening off farm because they're not lending off farm. And very often I find that the banks say to me, why aren't more family businesses doing this? I ask the banks to provide a précis of the business. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the business? And I'm particularly interested in the weaknesses of the business because in identifying them, that becomes my agenda in working with the client next year. So that next year's AGM, we can come and say, well, these were the weaknesses last year, and we've fixed these. And now we're less of a risk to you, Mr. and Mrs. Bank Manager. And if we're less of a risk to you, then we should be and could be getting rewarded in an interest rate reduction.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes sense. And you also advocate for getting away from the farm when it comes to these meetings too, don't you?
Yeah, I still do hold many family board meetings where the stock agent turns up or the phone rings or people do answer the phone while we're having a board meeting. So it's good to be free of these sorts of distractions. Again, best practice. It's a professional business, 2 million plus turnover business, $20 to $100 million of assets. I don't think the phone rings in the BHP board meeting.
I wouldn't think so, no. Now, Chris, I guess just to finish, I'd love to know, like after 34 years in agriculture and the industry, what is it that keeps you involved and so passionate about helping family farming businesses?
Well, I think my purpose of being is to help other families or to help families help themselves. So I've moved through the start of my career, I suppose, in terms of thinking that I had all the answers, and I don't. Probably all this grey hair and a few wrinkles has led me to lead that you bring other people in. My job's about connecting up families with other problem solvers. So I'm a facilitator or a mediator, whatever you want to say, and therefore my job, my method of being, is to help people help themselves, and those people are families in business, and I help those families in succession, finance, and business advisory.
And can I ask, for you, having walked the road yourself of business growth and change and evolution, what has been a pivotal moment for you in terms of, has there been a time where you've been really challenged and had to, then either bring in new people, take a bigger risk, whatever it might have been, that's, you look back at as being quite a defining moment?
Every succession planning meeting is a challenge. Absolutely every single one. I like the challenge. It's complex. It's people, it's money, it's assets, it's livelihood, it's legacies. I can't think of any particular one. I think my work is challenging, and that's what keeps me getting up in the morning and doing it. I think with the challenges, and if you can break through and achieve good outcomes for all family members, that's a great purpose, and that's a great thing to do.
It's a pretty special sector and seat that you get to sit in.
Yeah, we're blessed, and I'm grateful to be working in agriculture and the career that I've had. And as I said, I can see the finishing line, but there's still plenty of things to do, Ollie.
Well, we know you'll be busy right up until the finishing line. So, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat.
Pleasure, Ollie. Thanks.
Cheers.